Could just make a
Harold.
statement into the record, Attorney Mello, that as chair of the school committee, I'm going to relinquish my duties tonight to the vice chair, Mark D'Agostino, as I have a conflict and I have to leave the meeting early this evening. I'll take a roll call vote relative to the vice chair serving in my role tonight for this purpose. I say, I'm going to entertain a motion on that, please.
A motion for the co-chair or the vice chair, sorry, to take on the role of the mayor for today's meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Mendez. Motion was made by Ms. Mendez. It was properly seconded by Mr. Sullivan. Roll call vote. Chair says yes. Vice Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Minicello?
Yes.
Ms. Mendez?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Azak? I don't think I missed anybody. I think that passes.
All right.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mayor.
I don't think you called Tony.
Oh,
I did. I called Mr. Rodriguez.
okay.
Okay. All right. I must have missed it. Sorry.
All right. Very good. So in that case, I will call this special meeting of the Brockton School Committee today, Tuesday, February 16th at 6 p.m. to order. So I'll call the meeting to order and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could all join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I'll call the roll to establish a quorum. Mayor Sullivan.
Here.
Oh, wait, before I do that, I'm sorry. First, I have to read the COVID statement. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and state of emergency, on March 12, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, GL, Chapter 30A, Section 20. Pursuant to the order, public bodies are temporarily relieved from the open meeting law's requirements that public meetings be held in public places open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This meeting will be held and will be accessible to the public via Brockton Community Access, Brockton Public Schools website, www.bpsma.org, YouTube, and Comcast Channel 98. The public can access the link or this meeting via this link, www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. Now I'll call the roll to establish a quorum. Mayor Sullivan.
Here.
Okay. D'Agostino is here. Ms. Asak. Mrs. Mendez.
Here.
Mr. Minicello.
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Here.
Mrs. Sullivan.
Yeah.
Mr. Sullivan.
Here.
Okay. And Ms. Asak did reach out that, she had a work thing come up this evening. So she'll try and join us if she can get clear of that. Okay. Got the call to order. We've got our roll call to establish a quorum. So at this point, I'm going to call for a vote to go into executive session for the following reason. We want to have, as is on our agenda, executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy and obtain advice of counsel with respect to potential litigation threatened by First Student Inc. in connection with First Student's allegation of sums owed under the party's contract for transportation services. So, let me just get to that. The committee will enter executive session pursuant to GL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3 to discuss strategy and obtain advice of legal counsel with respect to potential litigation threatened by First Student Inc. in connection with First Student's allegation of sums owed under the party's contract for transportation services. I hereby declare that conducting this discussion in the open meeting session would have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the committee. The committee will return to open session following this executive session. So if we can have a motion to go into
Motion to go into
executive session.
executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded. So we have a motion to go into executive session by Mr. Sullivan, properly seconded by Mrs. Mendez. I'll call the roll. Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay. D'Agostino is a yes. Ms. Asak, I don't think she's with us yet. Mrs. Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Minicello?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay, we are in executive session. We'll let BCA do their thing here. Okay, so we have completed our executive session, and we will now move on to agenda item number 3 for this evening's special meeting. Discussion and vote regarding the purchase of school buses and the school finance subcommittee's review of such potential purpose. So are there any questions, or Mr. Petronio, did you have anything you wanted to go over with us before we?
Yes, well, first, I'm looking at the YouTube and the television stations. I think they haven't either, they're behind us or they lag or they haven't caught up yet. I don't know if we have to wait for that or.
Oh, yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Oh, yep, we are. How do I shut the volume off? Yeah, no, we're live. I'm watching it.
Okay, great. If I could share the screen, I'll bring up my spreadsheet quickly to show you where we stand.
All right, go ahead.
From our last discussion, Mr. Sullivan had asked about certain amenities in the buses like air conditioning, radios, certain equipment. So Dr. Cobbs and I went back out and met with the manufacturer, went through and added in those costs. It really wasn't that big of a change in difference for the benefit of having such. So we reviewed our quantities of buses, 10 of the large, 35 of the half size buses that hold 29, the half size buses with child restraint, 10 of those, the handicap buses, 7, and the half size buses with 35 passenger, 10. So altogether, I think that's 64 buses in the quantity. So we added in the prices. Everything in gray is what would consist of when we buy the buses. So they'll come with spare tires. Not all of them have spares. We just have spares that go in our warehouse. They come with two-way radios. They come with the camera systems. They come with the Zonar handheld inspection devices. So all that together comes to 5.483 million. That would be a purchase that I feel comfortable that we can make with the funds we have this year. That'll leave us plenty of funds to have busing for the rest of the year, crossing guards, our other amenities and costs, and still leave us with a sufficient balance in our non-net school spending budget. With that being said, towards the end of the year, if there is money left over, the remaining items, it's 532,000 I would look to buy would be, basically setting up the bus yard, the bus lot, the bus warehouse, all devices such as the radio, the base radios, the computers, shelving, the PA system, mechanics, tools and whatnot. Very likely we'll have those funds, which we'll talk, we have plenty of time for those because the buses we need to order because they take time to get. The rest of these items we can get in a matter of a month. So those are items that we can talk about more in the spring of what we need. That would leave us in a position of purchasing buses, some equipment to start the facility off. Everything below this line you see here is what I call our operational expenses. So moving forward with buying basically half the fleet, we look at our operational expenses, which we went over last time, the fuel, the electricity, the water, the maintenance, the phones, roughly about 900,000 a year. Personnel, same thing, about $4 million a year for personnel. We've got the driver training, workers' comp. We've got the different positions in the office. So all said and done, we're looking at a total of around of 10,600,000 would be the budget. This is for buying the buses. This was for running the operations. And then it's also for paying a vendor who would win the contract for next year at a 10% increase over this year. Could be more, but I factored in a 10% increase, about 10.8 million. That would be roughly a $1.1 million savings right off the bat. And again, that's only buying half the buses, 1.1 million. If we were to go and make the move to buy all the buses, the savings would be about 3.1 million our first year. So of that 3.1 million, of course, I've left a couple $100,000 in contingency in there. After the first year, we'll start having more items like sick days to cover for, but that'll be easily covered just in our normal costs that would be going up every year with an outside vendor. So right away, I'm estimating at least $1 million savings our first year. And again, if and when we decide to complete the fleet, if we don't go outside of what we have, we could save upwards of 3 million a year. So, and then this also puts us in a position where all the extracurriculars we want to do basically cost us overtime of our drivers. We own the buses, we own the fleet. Our overhead expenses are all there. It's basically the cost of that driver going to the football game or to the Museum of Science, which right now we spend about 300,000 a year out of the education budget for all those events. So that's a good potential savings in our education budget. Again, I know we've gone over this. I will send everybody this spreadsheet. But again, like I said, I add an extra 100,000 of just unknown under personnel, and all of these numbers all carry a little extra in them anyway. So we've got what I consider to be plenty of cushion for any small items that might come up and change. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Aldo,
Yes.
there were, there's a couple of times we've received correspondence from First Student saying that there were expenses we hadn't considered. And I know there are some expenses such as excise taxes, and I think there were some others that we actually wouldn't incur because we're a municipality. Is that correct?
Excise taxes. Our gasoline cost is the base cost. There's no taxes on the gasoline that we use. The city buys that in bulk anyways, but there's no municipal taxes on that. So we save quite a bit of money there also. We don't pay registrations for the vehicles, the plates, all those for us is free. No annual cost on that. And the insurance, because we not only have these vehicles, but all the city vehicles are all with one agency. They're all covered under one umbrella. We have the benefit of a very large fleet like that on the insurance. And we have probably over 150 police cars. And then between the DPW, fire department, and school vehicles, probably another 100 or more vehicles. So we've got quite a large fleet.
And then if you don't mind, I'm just trying to see if anyone else has a hand up. All right, before I go, Mr. Sullivan.
Just one question for Aldo.
Yes.
You had mentioned 5.5 is buying half the buses, and
Yes.
10.6 is all the buses?
It's a little bit more because we added air conditioning and those other items in. So it's 5.5 for the buses and all the camera and everything else equipment, and 6.4 for these two top figures on my sheet. That would be the total of all the vehicles. And keep in mind, that's extra vehicles. That leaves us with, I think, 3 extra large buses and 3 or 4 extra small buses that we would have in the event that something went down.
All right.
The 6.4 is you would need that to do half the buses, right? The 70 buses?
Yes. Between it's 127 total bus vehicles, which would end up being 11.9 million roughly. And again, that's the vehicles plus all the equipment that we put into them. GPS, the camera systems, the Zonar, air conditioning. We've got seat belts, we have removable seats, spare tires. We basically made sure we had everything.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from the committee? Let me just make sure I can. Hard to see everybody with this mode. Okay. And then the mileage, I know that was one of the things that, there was some doubt on. Can you just talk to us a little bit about that issue?
Sure. So what you're looking at there is the gasoline usage, which we based on the buses doing an approximate 5,000 miles a year. We received a letter that said it's more like 12,500. But Dr. Cobbs and I have reviewed the routes that we have, and we don't see how we have that. We might have a higher number on one or two buses, but you have a lower number on a bunch of other buses. All depends on the routes that you run. But we're in Brockton, we're based in Brockton. There's no extra jobs that we're taking on, so we don't see how. But even if we did do the extra mileage, the cost is minimal. And it just means we figure the first 3 years is very little maintenance or service because of the mileage. Even if you did 12,000 miles a year for 3 years, 36,000 miles, at that point there, you're changing brakes and you're doing oil changes, and minor maintenance on the motors. They're brand new vehicles. So we don't see a huge change in that, but we have Peggy's going to go through and give us every single route that we have. Because remember, the routes change every year depending on where our kids move. But we're within Brockton. Brockton's 4 miles by 5 miles. So even with 3 runs, you're not running, according to that number, 70 miles a day per bus, for every single bus. Some buses are going to run 6-7 miles if they're doing their route around a certain elementary school or whatnot. So, but again, even if that number were to change, minimal difference. Even if the amount we pay per hour to attract our drivers, even if I raised it to the current rate that they're getting with I feel less benefits and retirement with a private vendor, even if we raise it to that, we still save over $500,000 our first year just with half the buses going to that amount. But I feel that municipal pension, municipal health insurance is very valuable. So, that follows any sort of pension system that looks at, even if it's a matching 401k, still nowhere near as good as a municipal pension. Municipal pension is the best you can get. So that has some serious value to it.
Any other comment or question from the members of the committee? Let me just scroll through, make sure I see everybody. Okay. All right. Well, if there's no further question or comment from the committee, if someone wants to, the motion that I think we would need would be motion to amend the 2021 non-net school spending budget to allocate a total of $5,483,564 from the ordinary maintenance, regular education, transportation, and special education transportation items collectively to school department capital for the purpose of the acquisition of school buses and to authorize the purchase of such buses accordingly. Anyone want to make that motion?
So moved.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Sullivan. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. It was kind of a tie. I think it was Mrs. Mendez. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to call the roll. Mayor Sullivan, Oh, I think he's left. Okay. We knew he had to head to a meeting. All right. So D'Agostino, I'm a yes. Ms. Asak,
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez,
Yes.
Mr. Minicello,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries unanimous. We will move on to the next item of the evening, which is any other business to come before this special meeting. I don't have any. Does anybody else have any business that needs to be tended to this evening? No, superintendent, nothing? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on.
Thank you.
And no problem. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah, I heard a motion to adjourn from Mr. Sullivan, and I think Mrs. Mendez seconded.
Yes.
All right. So I will call the roll. D'Agostino is a yes. Ms. Asak,
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez,
Yes.
Mr. Minicello,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
All right, folks, we are adjourned. Thank you so much for your time and your attention tonight. I know it's vacation week, so I really appreciate you all making the time.